The Christmas season. It's that time of year when traditions and nostalgia blend to make old things new once again. Like Elf, Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, Home Alone. Personally, I've got a lot of nostalgia for internet culture. And as time goes on, I find myself reflecting more and more on those bygone memes of yore. Like Viper the Rapper, for example. Remember that guy? I wonder what he's been up to recently. Let's fire up the old Google and see. Oh. Today, we're going to talk about the worst thing an internet celebrity has ever done. I should warn you, if you're sensitive to crimes against women, there's going to be a definitive point in this video where you should stop watching. But don't worry, I'll make it very clear when we're approaching that point. This is going to be the strangest video I've ever made. This story just goes to so many different places. I honestly don't even know where to begin. But maybe first I'll give you a quick overview of what you can expect. In your head, I want you to imagine three people. The first is an incredibly influential musician who pioneered an ever-increasingly relevant genre called cloud rap. Think Blade, Lil B, A$AP Rocky, they're all cloud rap. The second is a controversial internet figure who's brought laughs to many over the years with their ridiculous antics. Think Chris Chan, Joshua Block, you know what I'm talking about. The third is a repeat criminal who's escalated from fraud to SA to something so bad it's almost indescribable. Now, if you take those three characters and combine them into one person, you'll end up with Viper the Rapper. If you've heard of Viper, chances are it's because of his uncanny way of releasing absurdly titled songs seemingly right after some big event happens. Like, the Titanic submersible fell victim to my spirit of the sea. Playing Rocket League instead of voting, or South Korea's mandatory conscription won't help them fight against my brand of crack. And speaking of crack, whenever a Viper song isn't about current events, it's usually about selling or consuming this illicit substance. The videos themselves are even stranger, showing Viper, a middle-aged man, dancing in front of everything from video game footage to vaporwave scenes to Chris Chan to iDubbbz. There's a lot to unpack here, but before we do that, we're gonna need to start at the beginning, in an era long before the internet. Lee Carter was born in 1971 and spent most of his childhood in Houston, Texas. He began playing piano in kindergarten and honed his skills over the years playing in his church band. Throughout the late 80s and early 90s, Lee experimented with making hip-hop music in his spare time. And in the late 90s, he would make the decision to pursue music full-time as both a rapper and a producer. In 2003, he would release a self-titled debut album under the alias Lee Dog. But 2 years later, he would re-release this same album, now renamed Hustlin' Thick, under a new artist name, Viper the Rapper. Hustlin' Thick is a mostly G-funk sounding hip-hop album with a bit of a lo-fi tinge to it. What separates it from other hip-hop made at the time, however, are its arrangements. While hip-hop beats have historically used samples of other music as a foundation for everything else in the song, Viper instead layered short melodic loops he made using a Korg Trident, a fairly popular workstation synthesizer. Fresh off of playing in a church band for 10 years, Viper's musical style appears to be influenced by gospel and R&B, featuring lush chords filled with additive notes being played with smooth, warm synth sounds. On top of this, Viper appears to be naturally gifted at songwriting. Short musical loops can become boring to listen to when they're being played for 3 or 4 minutes straight, but Viper seems to effortlessly make these little snippets interesting enough that they never really become tiresome, even when some of the songs on this album go on for more than 5 minutes. While the lyrics are nothing special, the vocal melodies that sit on top of his choruses are always catchy and engaging. My favorite track on this album has to be Married to My Lute. The beat here features a very simple, short, and effective chord progression played on a piano with some low sawtooth synths sitting under it. This is accompanied by a punchy, messy, and unconventional drum beat. After the intro, the chorus comes in featuring guest vocalist Ice LaBelle. Some square synth lead comes in here, and everything together sounds so hazy, digital, and drugged out. Nothing sounded like this in 2003. Remember, this was the era of Kanye West and 50 Cent. It wouldn't be until later in the decade when producers like Clams Casino would emerge, making similarly hazy, faded beats, boasting huge synthesizers and emotional chord progressions. But we'll get to that in a little bit. While Hustle and Thick is undeniably a well-made and innovative album, it failed to see much success. Not one to be discouraged though, Viper continued to make several albums over the next few years. But this is when a strange trend would begin to occur in his music. His sophomore album, Ready and Willing, featured many beats that appear to be completely reversed. Upon further investigation, unreversing these songs reveals that Viper more or less stole entire R&B songs made by other artists, including Never Can Say by Sparkle and Boy You Knocked Me Out by Tatiana Ali. As we said earlier, sampling is a staple of hip-hop, but usually samples are cut up from small slices of songs and they only exist as the base of a beat. Producers will add their own drums, bass lines, and other instruments over samples to make something completely new. Viper just took almost uncut existing songs, reversed them, and then added his own lyrics without adding any other musical embellishments. Simply reversing a song is not enough to make something new. This sort of lazily produced music is something that would become a big stain on Viper's musical legacy, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Despite quickly cobbling together a few low-effort songs made with stolen beats, Viper was also still making high-quality original tracks alongside them, and he continued to innovate on his craft. His following albums, Heartless Hoodlum and The Southwest Hooligan, would feature even slower, hazier, and more comatose-sounding instrumentals. On Heartless Hoodlum, Viper would start to use samples more normally, cutting up short snippets of songs and rearranging them to make something new. The result was some of Viper's most ominous and avant-garde music, like Leanin' Low. This song features only a single looped sample that occasionally changes and no drums, making it the first song in the drumless genre of rap, a whole year before Jay Electronica. This song kinda reminds me of I Feel Like Dying by Lil Wayne. They both share this ominous apocalyptic atmosphere. Despite innovating ever more, Viper still wouldn't see any success from these releases. In fact, he wouldn't attain any sort of fanfare for the remainder of the decade, and the first few years of the 2010s as well. But in 2013, a Viper track made in 2008 would blow up in a massive way, gaining him not only internet fame, but also mainstream media attention from music outlets like Noisy. Just what was the track that garnered all this attention, you might ask? Well, it's called Y'all Cowards Don't Even Smoke Crack. The misspelling is apparently intentional. This track truly feels like it came from a different dimension. Everything about it is just bizarre. From the cover art depicting Viper with his trademark lazy eye that looks like it's been printed and scanned back into the computer multiple times, to the misspelled title asserting that the listener is a coward for not consuming an illicit stimulant. And while the lyrics and title might revolve around an upper, the tonality of the song does not match at all. Pressing play greets the listener immediately with a blaring wall of synthesizers playing one of Viper's trademark catchy melodies that sounds like it's been injected with a hefty dose of opiates. This is accompanied by a slow, sparse, and meandering drum beat that, while not providing much rhythm, manages to just barely keep the song from bursting apart at the seams. This track was my introduction to Viper. My friend from school showed it to me around the time it was blowing up in 2013, and I remember thinking that it was the strangest piece of music I'd ever come across. It wasn't just good, it was like the most ghetto piece of media I had ever seen. It's easy to see why Y'all Cowards blew up. It was an incredibly unique and fresh take on a genre that had been exploding at the time. Cloud rap. Cloud rap is a primarily internet-based subgenre of hip-hop that's trademarked by its heavy use of synthesizers, hazy production, and laid-back, relaxed rapping styles. Artists like Lil B and A$AP Rocky pioneered this style in the early 2010s. But guess what? Viper had developed a very similar sound completely independently years before these guys. And in 2013, he was finally getting some recognition for it. You might think that this is a point in the story where this flawed but talented innovator of his craft will begin to truly make a name for himself, right? This is a chapter where Viper uses his newly found fame and money to build connections that can help him create better music and display it to a wider audience, right? Well, no. That's not what happened at all. What did happen was far stranger than anyone could have expected. If you watched some of my first videos on this channel, you might notice the chair I was sitting on, which was a kitchen chair, not exactly very ergonomic. I've since upgraded a couple times since those long gone days of yore, and the most recent and favorite chair I've been using is a Flexispot C7Max. This chair is super ergonomic and built for long-term sitting sessions. Almost every part of it is adjustable to fit your specific needs, whether you want to raise, lower, or rotate the armrest or headrest, or adjust the height or angle of the backrest or lumbar support. My C7 also has a comfortable and breathable mesh seat, which has been a pretty good upgrade over the worn-down foam seat in my last chair. Another big upgrade is the excellent lumbar support, which my old chair completely lacked. It not only encourages you to sit straight, but it feels like it molds to the shape of your back. I think my favorite feature of the C7 Max is the slightly larger size of the seat, and the way you can kind of change the angle and make it jut out a bit, which allows me to actually sit cross-legged comfortably. Which I know not everybody might want to do, but it's something I've always wanted to do with an office chair, and now I finally can. Don't let your dreams be dreams. If you want to try out the C7 Max risk-free, Flexispot offers a 30-day return policy. And even after those 30 days, you'll still have a 10-year warranty. Use code FERAL or click the link in the description below to get the best price possible. Thank you to Flexispot for sponsoring this video. Remember how we talked about Viper padding out his albums with these lazily thrown together songs made with stolen music? Well, as the late 2000s dragged on, he continued to expand his filler content, releasing albums like 2009's Thug's Passion, which is just hustle and thick except the track order is in reverse, or 2010's Plush Player, which has all the same songs as Ready and Willing, except with different names and in a different order. Viper had graduated from making albums with mostly original content accompanied by just a few filler songs, to releasing new albums that had the exact same content as previous albums with nothing at all new. In 2013, Viper suddenly had a lot of new fans. The Old Cowards have been viewed by millions of people. Some of these fans were getting in touch with him, offering to do things like making him beats, making music videos, helping him with mixing, etc. While most artists in this situation might use these newly forged connections as an opportunity to improve their art, Viper instead went the other way and began industrializing the production of his filler content. Viper gathered up all the songs he had ever made into a giant folder, took some selfies of himself, and asked the fans who had contacted him to make him new albums by renaming existing songs, making some album art with the selfies, and packaging it all together with a catchy album title. He had multiple people working on putting these quote-unquote albums together, and he even expanded his repertoire of songs with some new ones he had made with beats that fans had sent him, with varying results in terms of quality. Viper's strong suit has always been his unique instrumentals, not so much his rapping. Removing his musicality from the equation generally removes most of the incentive to listen to his music. This process that Viper came up with produced a ridiculous amount of content. In fact, in 2014 alone, he released a total of 347 albums, netting him more media attention solely for his sheer prolificacy. Now, I'm sure you can imagine the sorts of fans that an outsider cloud rap artist like this might have, and combining this with the fact that Viper has basically no quality standards, it all led to some pretty funny albums being produced. Like, Kill Yourself My Man, Cops Can't Read 6, Fuck the World It Ain't Real I Bend the Spoon With My Mind 4, Why the Fuck Is Tibet Still Ain't Free, and my personal favorite, Let's Kill Viper. Viper would continue to release hundreds of albums a year, flooding streaming services and YouTube with the same 80 or 90 songs repeated thousands of times. Viper said his strategy was to make it so there were more Viper songs than all other songs by every other artist ever combined, so people would have to take notice of him. In 2015, Viper would expand his fan-made content operation to include music videos. He uploaded almost 40 make-your-own Viper music video clips to YouTube, which are mostly all just him dancing in front of a green screen, mouthing random rap lines, and sometimes holding some cash. These videos were meant to be combined with any random Viper track. The fact that the words would never match whatever Viper was singing in the song didn't seem to matter. If fan-made albums and album art unlatched the shitpost floodgates, the fan-made music videos blew them right off their hinges. Suddenly, Viper was depicted rapping in front of 9/11 footage, Tiananmen Square, Minecraft gameplay, Chris Chan videos, and even actual wartime combat footage. These fan-made music videos might be what Viper is most well known for. His industrialized shitposting process would prove to be especially fruitful on YouTube, where he would upload new music videos parodying current events as they happened, varying from niche topics like the release of a popular new video game, or notable world events like the Capitol Hill riot or the coronavirus outbreak. Around 2015, when Viper began doing this, I happened to be in Toronto for a few months recording an album with the shoegaze band I was in at the time. One of my longtime online friends also happened to be living in Toronto at that time, and one day when we were hanging out IRL, he started to tell me about what it was like to edit videos for Viper. My friend just so happened to be Viper's main editor at the time. Of course, when I heard this, I said that you have got to get me in on this somehow, so we both spent a couple hours throwing together a Viper music video. That there's a Stashbot 2015, which featured hilarious George Costanza vaporwave pictures, anime, and a real video of a man peeing on the buns in an elevator. To be young again. Of course, Viper put it up on his main channel, probably without even watching it. Now, my friend was expected by Viper to make a lot of music videos, like 6 a week or something. One time he sent him an email with 50 songs and asked him to make a video for each one. I'm not actually even sure if Viper was paying him. I wouldn't be surprised if he either wasn't or was just paying him very little. About a year later, I was putting together an album made up of some hip-hop instrumentals I had made, and one of those songs sounded particularly Viper-esque, so I thought I would ask Viper if he would feature on it. I still had his email from when I made that music video for him. He then responded to me asking for $600 so we can make a whole Viper album together, and seemingly not responding to anything I had said in my original email. I asked my friend about it, and he told me not to give Viper any money because he would apparently just take it and not deliver on anything. My friend then told Viper he wouldn't make any more videos for him until he recorded a verse for my song, which he then did.
Watch how we go off. They say it on their top cheap. Walkers hating on me cause they couldn't be like me. I was getting so much cash. Was praying for bullets in my ass. Now I'm getting that cash and hitting these blocks deep in the hood.
A few months later, I once again reached out to Viper offering to remaster a couple of his classic albums, which all suffered from horribly blown out low ends that made them impossible to listen to with certain headphones and speakers. Viper then responded asking for $49, at which point he would apparently send me a verse, again not addressing anything I had said in my original message. This whole chaotic collaborative process was just the tip of the iceberg. It was around this time when Viper started posting about embarking on a soul-searching journey to test his mind, will, and soul. He then posted a picture of himself wearing a woman's body wrap, calling it Thawed, which is short for the horness of death. The idea was that he would wear this woman's body wrap for 10 days, and he would either die or evolve to become a new and improved Viper. This initial thawed journey would culminate with him being hospitalized after getting into a car crash on the 6th day, after the physical pressure from the wraps gave him a panic attack while driving. Viper would continue to start and stop thawed journeys over the next few years. He would start with just one body wrap, then eventually he would put on a second, then a third, until the pressure was just too much to handle and he would need to reset to start a new journey. In June 2016, Viper would post a picture of himself in a hospital bed saying that he fears no thawed, and implying in a different post that he had caught pneumonia from thawed. It's pretty hard to say what the point of the horness of death was. It can be interpreted as a sign of mental illness, some deranged fetish, or even just a strange publicity stunt. But in any event, it was just another sign that even disregarding all the memes and shitposts made on his behalf by others, Viper's own untouched presence was incredibly chaotic. The next few years would bring about more of the same in the world of Viper. He would continue flooding the internet with shitpost albums and videos made by others, not bothering to make any actual new music. He would continue to beg his collaborators for various things, like when he asked me out of the blue to press him 22 vinyls in 2019 for some reason. But at the very beginning of 2024, something truly awful would be revealed to the general public that would once again thrust Viper into international headlines. But before we get there, we need to properly set the stage. While nobody could have predicted the insane thing Viper would be arrested for, there were still signs over the years as to what was to come, mostly in how he treated women. And this is the point of the video where I will tell you if you're sensitive to violence against women or SA, you might want to stop watching here. But before you click away, I'll sum up the rest of the video quickly. Viper has done some pretty horrible things. Even disregarding this recent thing he was arrested for, there's still public evidence on the internet put up by Viper himself of him treating women pretty badly. And we're about to go over it. Alright, time to talk about the bad stuff. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Remember those make your own Viper videos? There were a lot of them. 45 to be exact. While the first half of these videos are pretty much just Viper dancing in front of a green screen, they would start to get stranger as time went on. The 29th Make Your Own Viper video consists of Viper dancing in front of an overturned truck on the side of a highway. And the 30th video is grainy footage taken in a dark and dirty room that shows Viper slowly encroaching himself onto a visibly uncomfortable woman in a bikini while distorted, blown out Viper shitpost music plays in the background. As the video goes on, Viper begins to kiss the woman, until she eventually has enough and leaves, with the video closing on the two arguing about something we can't hear over the sound of the trap house stereo system. The next video in the series appears to occur right after the last, with the same shot of Viper sitting on the couch in his underwear. It appears that he convinced the woman to pick up the camera and film him dancing in front of the door, which results in some of the most menacing looking Viper footage out there. 32 is another continuation of the same scene. Viper convinces the still obviously uncomfortable woman to dance with him, but a few minutes into it, you can hear a door opening off screen, surprising the couple. A different woman enters the scene and the couple walks off camera. Viper begins arguing with this new woman, saying that the other woman needs to get up early so she needs to leave the house right now. It's worth noting too that the woman Viper is arguing with appears to be intoxicated.
Come on.
Don't treat me like
You f***ing my shit up. I'm pissed off. You promised me you would chill the fuck out, and you came out here f***ing my shit up. I paid money for this shit. You don't know what the fuck I did. This shit cost me money. You cost me money, man. You want to give me back this fucking $100 I'm gonna give this lady?
Man, you want to give me back the $300 you owe me?
I ain't gave it to her yet.
Viper then begins explaining to the woman that he's filming with that this other woman is just a friend and nothing funny is going on, and that he plans to lock this other woman in his car, which is a bit of a dark foreshadowing of things to come.
Hey, look, I'm so sorry about this. She's my friend. The only reason why I even had her here was because you said something about bringing some people, and I didn't know who you were bringing.
Oh, I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I apologize about that, but now I'm gonna go put her in the car
Okay.
and lock her ass in the car, and then we can finish this, okay?
She's gonna stay in the car.
She don't stay in the car. If she get out to that fucking car.
The woman Viper was dancing with eventually walks out the door, but Viper still continues arguing with the intoxicated woman, trying to convince her to leave, until she eventually starts crying near the end of the video. The 33rd entry continues the same bizarre scene, with Viper trying to convince this drunk or high woman to leave his house. Eventually, she complies and stumbles out the door with Viper. She hasn't appeared on camera before, and we also have no clue what she was even doing in Viper's house. Eventually, Viper and the dancing woman return after only a couple minutes, meaning that Viper likely did just lock this intoxicated woman in his car so he could continue filming. The video ends with Viper telling his model that he needs to film her in her sexy jeans, all while the woman keeps saying how she needs to leave. This is obviously a pretty horrible scene, but the Make Your Own Viper video rabbit hole goes even deeper. The following video we're about to discuss was removed from YouTube and is only available on the Internet Archive due to its explicit nature, making it hard for me to show you much of it. Not that you would want to see it anyways. In this video, we see Viper hovering over a different scantily clad woman with a camera. The pair seem pretty jovial and are laughing with each other, but at some point the mood starts to change when Viper begins talking about turning the camera off and his pants hurting. Eventually, the camera focuses on the woman's face as her smile slowly disappears. The camera begins moving up and down, and labored breathing can be heard from both parties. I don't have to tell you what's going on here. Whether or not this was consensual, I have no idea. But it is upsetting, and it's about to get even worse. A whole lot worse, actually. That's right, we're finally gonna go over what Viper is currently in jail for. In April 2023, Houston police would receive a text on their 911 number from a woman stating that she was being held against her will inside the garage of Viper's home. When police arrived, they had to pry open the garage door, which introduced them to the horrible scene inside. In this dank, awful-smelling garage was a 70-pound malnourished woman wearing filthy clothes laying on a vomit-covered mattress, next to a bucket covered in human excrement. She told police that it had not only been 2 months since she had a shower, but that she had been locked in this garage for 5 years. Sometime between 2018 and 2019, Viper would come across a pregnant homeless woman panhandling on the side of the road. He would give her a bit of money and offer her a ride. After accepting and getting into his car, Viper then took her to his house against her will and locked her in the garage. In the agonizing 5 years that followed, Viper would force this woman to do his bidding, whether it was consuming illicit substances or performing intimate acts with him, all against her will. The only food he would give her was a small amount of Twinkies and chips, leading her to lose most of her body weight. She would have her child in this garage, as well as another child fathered by Viper. The woman would attempt to escape several times, sometimes making a run for it on the rare occasion Viper would allow her into his house to bathe. At one point, she managed to break a window in the garage, but every escape attempt was met with threats of violence from Viper, and he ended up boarding up all the windows in the garage. After a few years, Viper would begin to allow this woman to use his laptop occasionally, which gave her the ability to contact police, ultimately leading to her rescue. But there was a problem. Viper was nowhere to be found in this house. It didn't seem like he even lived there. It would take police almost a year to track down Viper, and they ultimately arrested him in January 2024. There's a pretty famous book by fellow Irish-Canadian Emma Donoghue called Room. In it, a woman is held captive in a room for many years while enduring constant SA from her captor and also being forced to give birth to and raise his child, all in one room. It's a very depressing read, but hey, at least it's fiction. That unfortunately doesn't seem to be the case with Viper, who seemingly played out the plot to this book in real life. Have you ever heard the expression, where there's smoke, there's fire? Well, this too would also apply to Viper, who would catch a second charge just a month later in February 2024, when a second woman would come forward and allege that Viper had also kidnapped her and forced her to perform intimate acts with him. Viper is currently in jail and awaiting trial for both of these cases, so it's worth mentioning that at the current time, they are mostly just allegations. He hasn't actually been found guilty yet, and of course he alleges his innocence. But it's not exactly looking good for him. Just a couple months ago, both Viper and his wife... Oh yeah, I guess I actually forgot to mention that he's been married this entire time. They were both charged with 108 counts of fraud and tampering with evidence, meaning they're likely scrambling to cover their tracks. Like I said, according to Viper, he's actually innocent. This is all just a big conspiracy against him. His wife would launch a GoFundMe in September to raise money for legal defense, which to this day has not received a single donation. Viper's trial for the woman who escaped his garage is currently set for July 18th, 2025. The story of Viper is truly one of the strangest tales to ever come from the internet. And we didn't even go over everything. Like, for example, I didn't tell you about Freemovers Inc., which is Viper's real estate company. Now, as far as I can tell, Freemovers Inc. is a legitimate company, like Viper does have a real estate portfolio, but he also releases music on YouTube under the name Freemovers Inc., so the line between Viper the rapper and Viper the real estate mogul is like blurred in a really weird way. It's all very strange, like everything else in this story. I also didn't tell you about Viper's brother, Greg Carter, who is an actual filmmaker. And I don't mean like an amateur filmmaker, like this guy has his own Wikipedia page that doesn't even mention Viper at all. It's like every nook and cranny you look into in this story has like something new and interesting to uncover. Now I'm sure some of you might be wondering, Farrell, why would you collaborate with somebody like Viper? Back in 2015 and 2016, Viper had a pretty different reputation, and don't get me wrong, back then he was still considered a bit of a scammer. Like, if you were to order merch from Viper, there was a pretty good chance you wouldn't actually get it in the mail, and there was a common consensus in the community that you shouldn't give Viper any money because whatever you were paying him for, it was pretty likely he wouldn't actually deliver on it. But I mean, keeping a woman locked in his garage for 5 years, this is like a totally different class of thing we're talking about now. This is not like internet drama, like YouTuber drama. This is like true crime. This is like Last Podcast on the Left, 3-part, 6-hour-long expose kind of thing. I mean, just really think about what Viper is being accused of here. He kept this woman locked in his garage for 5 years. He deprived this woman of her humanity for 5 years. Just think about how long that is. 5 years ago was what, 2019? Imagine from 2019 until 2024, you were locked in Viper's garage. You were only fed junk food. You were forced to do awful things with him. You were forced to carry his child. I mean, Viper basically enslaved this woman. It's just awful to think about. This has been a pretty hard one to talk about, guys, but regardless, I hope you had a great Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate this time of year. I hope it went well, and I'll see you in the new year. I'm going to take a break for the first part of January, but I'll see you guys in the latter half of January for something pretty cool. But until then, have a good night, guys. Take care.